I, Allison, she, her, and Jeff.
All right, Jeff Barawa, he, him.
We'll be your hosts, basically just kind of bringing us through the agenda, and Ryan will be our illustrious and very strict timekeeper. So basically, so for some context for anyone who doesn't know, this was initially intended to be an in-person event, and it's also the first time we've done a candidate forum. So Brave New World, we're figuring this out. This wasn't exactly like the dynamic that was initially intended, but we're here, and I am really glad we're doing it, and thank you all for participating. And also big thanks to the election committee, of which I am not a part, who have been working hard on the convention and setting this up. So this is an opportunity for candidates running for local election or local council positions to first share their candidate statement, sort of their vision for what they want to do in the next year, theoretically in office. And then after that, an opportunity for members to ask questions of them. Do look, you'll see in the agenda that there's two things you want to be paying attention to. First, the instructions on stack. So stack, and specifically progressive stack, are, you know, at the point when we're asking questions, how we track who's going to go next. And so if you have a question, you want to ask one or all or some of the candidates, you're just going to type stack into the chat, and then Jeff's going to monitor that. And what progressive stack means basically is that we just prioritize people who either haven't spoken yet and or are from marginalized groups. So we also ask that we keep any other kind of chatter sort of to a minimum in the chat so that people can focus on what the candidates are saying. And also, we want to, in the interest of time, if you are going to be asking a question, try to write it down beforehand, maybe while you're hearing the statement, so that it will be succinct and we can keep things moving. And also, Jeff just linked the candidate statements, so if you miss something, most of what the candidates are going to be saying, you'll also find in there. Ryan will be keeping close time, like I said repeatedly, so, you know, remain concise. Also, just a reminder that for the ballot this year, we have the very smart option of being able to opt out of the paper ballot being mailed to your house. It's like a 7-page document. Right now, only a couple dozen people have opted out of the paper ballot, saying that they'll definitely vote online. So if you're willing to do that, if you can vote online, please do that, just to reduce the amount of mail being sent out. Like we said, this is the first time, so we absolutely encourage feedback about how this went, what worked, what didn't work, what was missing. So feel free to jot any notes about that down as well, and there's a number of people who can chat with you after. Jeff, Ryan, am I forgetting anything?
I think you nailed it. Great job bringing us in, Allison. So we could get started with our candidate statements.
Yeah, oh, and Jordan just linked the opt-out form in the chat, so you can do that through that. Thank you, Jordan.
So we're gonna, we're gonna start with our candidate statements of each. We have, if you're looking at our agenda, we're gonna go co-chair, membership chair, secretary, treasurer, trustee, and then at large. We'll start with co-chair, like I said. That is sort of our, you know, some of our chief positions in the organization. They are listed as the people that chair our regular meetings and local council meetings, and they are able to make executive decisions based within this chapter. So to get started with that, we're gonna begin with Frances and have her give her statement.
And before Frances starts, sorry, Ryan makes a good point in the chat. We do something called Jargon Fox. Basically, especially if you're newer to the chapter, there might be terms or contextual information, even just referring to an event, and you don't know what's being referred to. You can either try to give the Jargon Fox visual signal, or feel free to just jump in the chat and say Jargon Fox, or just ask quickly for clarification, so that we can make sure you understand the context of what's being talked about. Andrew, what's your question?
I was about to say it doesn't matter because it doesn't apply until part three. But part three, can we, the candidates, ask questions also to the candidates?
I'll let Ryan and Jeff answer that. I would presume, yes, but
I would suggest if you're going to do that to, well, I'm okay. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan? I hadn't considered that wrinkle.
I could be at the bottom of the progressive stack.
Okay. One of the reasons that I'm sort of questionable about that is that I don't want this to turn into sort of a debate type sort of a situation, and that might be one way that it could happen. That make sense? Okay.
What
So
if they just PM'd questions and someone else asked them like we did the other night?
that would be a better way to do it, I think. Yeah, just PM it to me, and I'll do that. Okay, so let's get started with Francis. Francis is running for co-chair.
Hi, everybody. I'm Francis, she, her pronouns. And yeah, I'm running for co-chair. Thank you to the election committee for organizing this candidate forum. So I guess just to start real quick, a little bit about kind of my experience in the organization. I have been involved in local leadership positions and national leadership positions in DSA for the last few years. I've been co-chair of the healthcare committee and was also secretary of the chapter for on previous local councils. And then I've been involved in the National Medicare for All committee on their steering committee. So yeah, the intensity and uncertainty of our current political moment is truly like nothing that most of us have ever seen before. Bernie's loss was a historic defeat for the left. And at the same time, the pandemic emerged, which laid bare like deep inequity and instability within our society and within our healthcare system. A month later, Black uprisings across the country pushed politics forward in ways that like we can't even like begin to comprehend or feel out yet. And things are shifting and moving around with like incredible speed. So it feels like we hardly have time to think about the next day, let alone the next year. And this crisis moment also, you know, revealed weaknesses within our chapter. Like we are a majority white chapter in a majority Black city. We have a lot of transplants, and we don't have procedures in place to like productively navigate conflict and proactively navigate conflict. So these can feel like overwhelming problems, and it can feel like we're like things are moving too fast, and how do we navigate these things? But we do have to stop and face the big questions, or we'll spin our wheels until we're just too exhausted to go on. So we have to like ask ourselves, like, what is the role of a socialist organization in New Orleans? What are the material and political conditions that constrain us? And where can we intervene most effectively to transcend those constraints? We can't, and no individual can answer those questions. Like we have to grapple with them collectively, which means building out, strengthening our chapters so that we have a culture of trust and camaraderie, so that we have a really engaged and empowered general membership that really reflects working class New Orleans. We have to have a shared understanding of our political context, and we have to have forums for political debate that are accessible and safe and easy to navigate. And we have to have a disciplined optimism. So to that end, as co-chair, I'd want to prioritize kind of three main things. So like, first of all, the first one is kind of inward facing. So strengthening our chapter's internal culture and our processes by implementing, and incredibly, like some of these things are now like in the works because of the member-led town hall the other night, which is really amazing and was very cool to see. So strengthening our chapter's internal culture with like chapter-wide code of conduct, a robust harassment and grievance process, a robust anti-racism educational program that includes like varied opportunities for discussion, reading, trainings, and reflections on concrete ways that we can combat white supremacy and patriarchy in our organizing spaces and beyond. I want to move to monthly general meetings instead of bi-monthly. I want to build out a membership committee that prioritizes membership recruitment, engagement, leadership development for Black and Brown emerging leaders within the chapter. Also working with the national translation team to translate all of our written materials into Spanish and to help us ultimately provide translation at our meetings. And then externally facing, I want to prioritize campaigns and projects that like create opportunities for us to build working class power alongside Black and brown workers and with Black-led organizations in the city. Some examples of these things could include like a defunding and disarming the police in Orleans and surrounding parishes campaign, pressuring electeds to declare racism a public health crisis and to articulate Medicare for All as the most powerful policy tool that can address racial health disparities, especially in COVID-19. Joining the Sunrise Movement's efforts to pass Green New Deal resolutions in cities and parishes across Louisiana, and building out our mobilization infrastructure. The protest solidarity work that has been kind of unfolding over the last couple of weeks is really incredible, and I want to see more of that. And then, sorry, I'm talking so fast. Also, centering labor organizing, like a socialist organization that doesn't center and foreground labor organizing is not a socialist organization. So I want to work closely with WPL and center and foreground labor organizing in our chapter.
Thank you, Francis. Okay, next we will have also running for co-chair, Benjamin Hoffman.
Hey everybody, I'm Benjamin. I use he, him pronouns. I am currently the steward of the Direct Service Committee, and I've served on local council for the past year. And for about a year prior to that, I served as one of the co-chairs of the Direct Service Committee. I'm not going to read my candidate statement. It's available for everyone to read. I hope everybody does. I'm honestly kind of spitballing this, but I just more want to like talk about like the kind of co-chair that I want to be. And like, I guess I'll start from the beginning. Like, I remember when this chapter was not even a chapter yet, when it was like 12 people hanging out in a backyard being like, whoa, we get to call ourselves socialists. That's insane. And now we're like several hundred people strong and like becoming a serious player in the political landscape of New Orleans. And that's amazing. And like how that's happened has been by like when it's been successful has been from like when we've fostered an environment where new people can come into this chapter, and whether or not they have like a specific thing they want to get accomplished or they're just looking for guidance, they like have a place in this chapter. And like fostering a culture that feels safe and joyful and like you're actually part of something powerful, and that any member can take an idea to this chapter, and like people will get behind that if it's a good idea, if they can articulate it, and if people can help them articulate it. And like we can work honestly collectively, like with the strengths that we have, and like some of those strengths being like just a fresh perspective on something, like new people. We need more people. We need a bigger chapter. And the way we get a bigger chapter, a stronger chapter, is if we are like, I feel like the word empowering is kind of loaded, so I don't want to use the word empowering, but like if we can make it so like you come to this space and you feel like you're an organizer, and not just you feel like you're an organizer, like someone's helping you be an organizer. Yeah, that's just like the vision. I have like a lot of specific ideas, but those are just that. They're just my ideas. And like, this is a democratic organization. So like, it's about like our ideas. And I'm happy to like, I think some of my ideas are pretty okay. Like, I'm happy to put them out there. And I'm going to, for sure. I talk way too much. But like, I just want us to like have the kind of chapter where like we focus on, like we always talk about like expanding democracy to like where, you know, creating it where it doesn't exist, expanding it where it does. And like doing that within the chapter needs to be like a huge priority for us. So that's the kind of co-chair I want to be. So thanks.
Thank you, Ben. So those are our two co-chair candidates. Next, we're going to hear from the candidates for membership chair, which are Sean and Amanda, and we'll have Sean go first.
Hey, y'all. Thanks again for the election committee for setting this up. I think, in these weird times when we normally meet in person, I think this is a pretty cool environment to have this kind of discussion. So I am going to read from my statement. I hope that's okay with y'all. But here I go. So my name is Sean Duponche. I use he, him pronouns. I am a middle school math teacher in Jefferson Parish and a proud member of Jefferson Federation of Teachers. I've been a member of DSA New Orleans since October of 2019, and I am the current internal mobilizer of our labor committee, WPL. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Chile Gentilly to be specific. My family has a long history of organizing, from Homer Plessy, who changed the course of racial justice in the U.S., to my grandfather, who fought many years with the Orleans Parish Teachers Union. Organizing runs in the family. We are at a critical moment in our chapter's history. Despite the limitations of the current pandemic, the chapter has done amazing work, including but not limited to the Convention Center campaign, where we built a huge coalition with like-minded organizations in the city, the Medicare for All bill passed by New Orleans City Council, the Direct Service Committee working closely with GNOCC, who's feeding families across the city in this crisis, the creation of the political education, anti-racist, and CWU support working groups, and somehow being able to navigate this new, mainly online space. However, the chapter has internal struggles that need to be addressed. With the resurgence of Black Lives Matter movement, we need to reflect on and correct how our chapter and all structures we occupy, for that matter, perpetuates the very same systems of oppression that we fight so hard against. Racism being the most violent sin of capitalism, we have a responsibility as socialists to our comrades to undo and eliminate racism in all of its forms. In addition, due to the sense of urgency for many of the causes in which we stand in solidarity, many of our most capable organizers are left burnt out and unable to engage membership and build leadership. Finally, more recent events have revealed noticeable disconnect between local council and general membership. I'm running for a membership chair position, and if elected, I plan to take on these struggles with the help of general membership and the local council. As stated in the chapter officer roles description document, the membership chair is, quote, most focused on the well-being and organization of our chapter membership. To that effect, when a resolution or proposal is submitted to or by the local council, I'll ask these three questions. How will this proposal engage members? How can we make sure that this work is sustainable for our members? And how will this proposal build leadership? As a democratic membership-based organization, our biggest resource is our members, and we must sustainably activate and grow our members every chance we have, even especially if we want to create an organization that outlasts our capacity to organize. And when membership is exhausted and unable to attend local meetings, I remind our officers to consider membership's capacity before launching anything that will demand from our already stretched members. To maintain a relationship with our members, I will continue being a presence and recognizable face in meetings of various committees and working groups, and coordinating closely with our stewards to better assess the needs of our members. Lastly, a strong membership is not simply built from the top down, and so I plan on working with groups like Socialists to continue to provide spaces where networks and friendships among our comrades can flourish. To help delegate the more traditional roles of this position, the mobilizing team, which is in charge of introducing new members to the chapter and plugging them into current projects or campaigns, I will formalize their currently informal working relationship to membership chair with the creation of a membership committee that will be tasked to welcome and onboard new members of the chapter, involving them in work that is most relevant to them, recruit current or former phone bankers throughout the chapter and its working groups and committees, prioritizing enlisting members from all spaces in the chapter so this essential work does not rely on only a few members. I plan to build camaraderie and leadership within the newly formed committee by not simply sending these members spreadsheets of numbers to call, but also by hosting things like phone bank Zoom calls where we get a chance to sit and talk and be productive in the same space. And I will also work closely with the anti-racist working group to ensure that we provide welcoming experience for all people and continue to build a chapter that is representative of the city in which it exists. Far too long, the membership chair has been seen as the master of lists, someone you approach for curating a list of names that your team can reach out to. While that role is still important, the position is needed and capable of much more if we delegate and empower our members, excuse the terminology, Ben, but empower our members with some of these responsibilities. If you elect me, I hope to bring your voice to the local council, energize our untapped membership, and assemble a new group of leaders that will take our chapter to the next level of class consciousness. Thank y'all.
Great, thank you, Sean. Amanda, you're up.
Hi guys, that is very hard to follow up, but good job, Sean. So I'm Amanda, she, her, they, them are my pronouns. I am also running for membership chair, and I am also from the New Orleans area, born and raised. I grew up in Lakeview, and I currently live in Metairie. I've been an active member of DSA for about 2 years now. And most of my time has been spent within the Mobilizer committee itself, well, at least the Mobilizer program itself. So that's where I get to see what's happening mostly. Sorry, trying to change my view a little bit. So I've been part of, been a Mobilizer myself, and also this past year have been helping run cycles with those. Part of what I would want to do as membership chair is to continue to grow that into a more formal process. It's a little bit loosey-goosey, if anything, but I want that to become more of a welcoming committee where we can get new members engaged and plugged into work and continue to grow the membership that way. At last year's convention, we did vote to have a focus on growth and diversity of the chapter. And I think with everything that has happened in the last week, that is still a major priority because our membership does not reflect the makeup of the city we are working within. And we have to do better for that. Sorry, reading off my thing. So yeah. And then obviously there is a need of transparency within the organization, and I want to work to find a way to make that a attainable goal. And we need to define what transparency is between LC and our general membership, but also continue to build a code of conduct and a conflict resolution to make this chapter work and grow and be for the better, where we're not in these situations again where it feels like almost a bomb going off, So to continue to grow all of that, and also to work with the co-chairs in a capacity. Obviously, part of being membership chair is to be that third vote if the co-chairs cannot agree, and I want to be able to be that third vote with confidence and not any sort of agenda for anything like that. But please read my statement as well. I'm a little scatterbrained right now because I just got off a shift at work, but I look forward to listening to y'all and answering any of your questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. So next we have the Office of Secretary. First up we have for that is Lori.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lori DiGiovanni. I'm a native of New Orleans. My family's been here a really long time. I'm working class, I'm a mom, and I understand the struggle. I have empathy for people that are, working class, and I'm not really good at talking, but I'm gonna get better. This is something I'm working through. My goals are to grow the membership, and I would like for there to be more families involved as far as working on thank you, Jeff, as far as working on building families in a family type caucus thing with a focus on teaching children empathy, because I think that honestly that would solve a lot of our problems if we taught children empathy and how to relate to the world in a way that is productive for everyone. I do a lot of studying in psychology. I'm like an armchair psychologist or whatever. So my background, I'm an insurance agent. I'm not working right now, but hopefully I'll be working again soon because of COVID. My daughter is not in school because she's not able to find. I'm not able to find care for her because of being a parent. Any agenda for people recently joined? I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, I just want to say that I thank whoever was the one that had the faith in me to nominate me, and I'm very honored to work with the people that I see on this panel so far. And I'll be very honored to serve as secretary. And I do want to focus a lot on the anti-racism group as well.
Thank you so much, Lori. Next up is the role of treasurer, and I will kick it over to James for that.
Hello, and thank you. I will also be reading from my statement, if that's okay, because I want to correct an error that I made. I forgot to thank the person who nominated me, so I would like to thank whoever that was. My name is James. I'm candidate for treasurer, originally from Florida, moved to New Orleans in 2009. I have been a member of DSA since 2016. I've worked as a chef for over 20 years. It's plenty of time to get angry at the cruelty my brave and essential food industry siblings suffer at the hands of capitalist barbarism. I've done organizing work with DSA and the New Orleans Hospitality Workers Committee. Organizing work has taught me so much about myself, but I'm most grateful to my comrades for teaching me humility. Growing up as a white male in America, humility does not come standard. Our chapter is also growing up, and the world is not going to wait for us. I'm excited about the growth of our membership, and if elected, I will work closely with our Treasury trustees and local council to support our organizing efforts and to keep our chapter growing. By being honest in critique of ourselves and earnest in our work, I know that New Orleans DSA can grow in a way that is respectful of everyone. And then I guess I just wanted to kind of clarify what I mean by earnest in our work. Some of you know that I work extremely long hours and I'm not always available to do meetings and such. I've always wanted the position of New Orleans DSA janitor. I want to do grunt work that is bogging our committees down and making kind of overtaxing our local council. I mean by earnest what I think nonprofit and kind of corporate type people mean by professional. I want to be efficient and diligent while maintaining standards of decorum, etc. But I also mean what those spaces don't mean and what is important to our space, and that is sincerity. I believe that transparency is all well and good, but without assuming the best intentions of our comrades and being sincere with each other, all the Slack channels in the world can't prevent us from sort of fostering some of the negative things that maybe get in our way. Thank you very much. And then I just quickly, if I still have a minute, I want to say hello to our current treasurer and to my comrade Stephen. I look forward to working extremely closely with them to train me into how to be as good a treasurer as they have been. And I'm very grateful for the help that they've given me already. So thank you very much.
All right. So in addition to our treasurer position, we have two treasurer trustees who are who work with the treasurer in the position, and they're going to be next. So first we have Allie.
Hey y'all, I'm Allie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the current treasurer, and I've been in and around this chapter since it started. And the reason I'm running for treasurer trustee is because I would like to step back from leadership. I'm ready to let the new leaders take over with the political development and the trajectory of the organization. I would like to be a trustee because I feel like I've done a really good job as treasurer. We have implemented a chapter-wide budgeting process. We've streamlined our financial reporting. We have kept in compliance with all state and federal requirements. We have streamlined our reimbursements. We have improved our local donors program. We have over $10,000 in the bank, and I've provided timely and accurate reports on all of our funds. I have a unique set of skills in that I'm a socialist who also has an MBA. It's really dumb, but like this is the one thing I can do. And so I would like to support James in his, if y'all elect him to be treasurer, I would like to train him, support him, and support the chapter through doing this by keeping up the financial systems, improving them, because I think we still have a long way to go, especially if we continue to grow. Once we reach a threshold where we're, where we have a certain amount of money in the bank, then we're going to have to change the way we report our financials to the IRS. So something we need to keep in mind. And so I would like to be on deck to help out and help guide those kinds of things. But I'm also just, I think it would also be helpful to have me around as a trustee for continuity and organizational memory, so that if need be, I'm not going anywhere, but like there's a lot that we've tried. There's a lot that's been done. I've lived in New Orleans since about 2006, so I have a lot of experience on the left in New Orleans. So yeah, I want to stick around, but I'm ready for new leaders to take over. And this is a great way that I can continue to do what I'm good at and support the work that y'all are doing. Thanks.
Also running for the position of treasurer trustee is Bill. Are we sure if Bill's on the call? I didn't see him on there. If he's not, we can move on.
Yeah, make sure to take a look at Bill's candidate statement, and if anyone does have specific questions for him, if you need any help facilitating that after, we're more than happy to help. So the next part is the interactive portion of this event. So it's an opportunity for the membership to ask questions. Right. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, we do need to get through.
Oh my gosh, at large, wow, hello. Just skipping right over. So we have 2 at-large positions on the local council. Apologies for trying to pretend that's not the case. So first up, Nadia.
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks y'all for putting this together, and I'll definitely try and keep it brief. Allison and everyone else, I knew that being second to last to speak, that a lot of the ideas that I have in my candidate statement would already have been echoed by the folks that will be on the next LC. So that's actually one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to working with some of them. But for those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Nadia Eskildsen. My pronouns are she or they. And I've lived in New Orleans for about 13 years. I'm the coordinator of the New Orleans Syringe Access Program, which is a needle exchange that provides harm reduction materials and healthcare services for people who inject drugs in the city. I'm a first-generation American and a Black queer woman who grew up in the South. And I'm committed to the fight for power and autonomy for all peoples, specifically through the liberation of the working class. So as I think everyone on this call knows, the New Orleans CSA is at a critical place, not only in its own evolution, but in a time of unprecedented uprisings globally and at home. This is a time of reckoning, and our chapter must have our house in order. Accountability to ourselves and to the city is paramount. This is why, as an at-large LC member, it will be one of my main priorities to collaborate with others to create systems that allow for all of us to work together without unacknowledged conflict or pain that is festering or stymieing our, not only our goals, but our care for each other. It will also be my priority that these protocols will be transparent and easily accessible to all members. We must acknowledge our shortcomings and errors in order to grow and grow stronger as an organization. And growth can be painful. It can be uncomfortable. But by pulling back that veil on the mistakes of our past, we allow ourselves to move forward into the future. And I must say this plainly, that future will be working class. And the working class of this city is Black. If we want to be the vanguards of the new anti-capitalist world in our hearts, we have to focus on collaborative roles for our organization alongside the people that made the city what it is. In building our membership, it has to be a foregone conclusion that our organization reflects the wants, desires, and demographics of the place where we live. On that note, I'm a transplant. A lot of you are transplants. And we have to acknowledge our place in this struggle with open hearts and humble strength. My second priority as council member at large would be to work with our chapter's People of Color Caucus to be an organization that prioritizes the struggles of Black and Brown workers and Black and Brown locals specifically, those with homes and families here and in the post-Katrina diaspora. So lastly, and in summation, I believe that alongside my soon-to-be fellow local council members, we have the ability to improve the capacity, effectiveness, and strength of this organization. We'll really need to assess the way campaigns currently operate, siloed off into committees and causing undue pressure and burnout on a select few, while isolating many in general membership who want nothing more than to be more active, but find it difficult to comprehend the Byzantine ins and outs of our chapter work. So I'm committed to creating a more sustainable model. Much of that groundwork has already been laid, but there's just more to be done by healing the very real harm that has occurred here and moving.
Did we lose you, Nadia? Oh no. She was really getting cooking too. Did y'all lose me?
To create an enduring legacy of class resilience in the city.
Did everybody else have a freak out for the internet?
Yes.
Okay. I think.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Was Nadia able
Hey,
to?
I'm looking at the chat and it looks like I cut out maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do the last bit of what you were saying again?
Oh dear.
Yeah, we can definitely extend Nadia's time. It looks like we're just still having some connection issues.
Nadia, are you there?
I only see the two of you guys.
Well, we
What?
can hear you.
Oh yeah, I just unmuted it, but can you see me? Like I'm moving?
Yes. You're
Okay.
alive.
All right.
Andrew can't hear anyone. Andy can hear people. Most people seem to think that they can hear audio, but Andrew S. cannot. Oh boy, I was hoping this would happen. Allison, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear and see everyone. So this seems to be a mixed issue.
Yeah. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
It might help if people cut off their video.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you're not speaking, please take a video off. All right, much better. Okay, so I guess we should introduce Andrew.
Hey, wait, let's let Nadia finish. Let's give Nadia another.
Yeah.
Is she able to do that right now? All right, Scott, Armand can't hear. Oh dear. You have nothing to apologize for, Nadia.
Jeff, let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, let's take a 5. Yeah, that's a good idea.
If people want to try to back out and come back in.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually helps or not, or if that's, but
we're gonna try
it. We're ahead of schedule. Let's resume at 5:18.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you are having problems with audio, if you cannot hear my voice, I guess it's not going to do any good either then, is it? Yeah, good. Andrew, can you hear me now? All right, great. All right, Nadia's coming back. Nadia, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear and see everyone again.
All right, great. So we're gonna take a little break, a little 5-minute break, and we're gonna reconvene at 5:18. We're asking people to log out and log back in just for the issues that suddenly happened. You were doing so great. You broke the Zoom. So good job. But we're gonna let you
Sorry,
finish.
guys.
We're gonna let you finish up, and then we'll move on to Andrew, and then we'll sort of reset and finish up. 5:18. We're starting at 5:18. So in 3 minutes. Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again, Steve? How dare you?
Blow on the cartridge.
I heard that if you shake it, it's better. All right, Andy Nyman is saying that leaving and rejoining worked for him, but if you can hear my voice, then you're probably not having that problem. So.
I like how we had that issue and I had no issues. We're on the same internet in the same house.
I don't understand computers. It's the series of tubes, right?
So I was today years old when I realized, was yesterday old when I realized that I had 5G internet in my house.
Oh no.
Yeah, this whole time I've been paying for like 150 whatever's a second, and I've only been like 50 or 60. So yeah, dummy. Not the best at interneting.
I'd also take this time, if you're just sitting there, especially if you weren't on the call earlier, if you definitely are willing and able to vote in these elections on the internet rather than on paper. Jordan, do you mind dropping that link one more time? I think it's just up in the chat. There's a form. You can just opt out of having the hard copy 7-page version of the statements and ballot sent to you, and you can just do it online and save some paper that way. And we have hundreds of members, and prior to this meeting only like 24 people had opted out so far. I know, Slack is just at moments unnavigable because so many things are happening at once, but this is a good moment to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and the comrades that are manually stuffing those envelopes with all that information in it, well, thank you for that.
And Jordan just linked that in the chat.
Got 1 more minute. We'll get back to it. Thank you all for your patience. And thanks for your time, like taking your time out to be a part of this. It shows that so many people are interested in the chapter going forward. It's nice to see. I don't know. Warms my heart.
Okay, so Nadi, now it's 5:18, did you have anything you wanted to finish up saying?
Well, I'm not exactly sure where I cut out, but like I said at the beginning of my speech, I feel like a lot of, the comments that I was making had already been echoed by the folks that I'll be working with. So I'm more than happy to allow their words to stand in for my unfortunate Zoom situation there. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Nadi. And like Jeff said, you were just too powerful and Zoom broke. So now over to Andrew. If we in fact have Andrew.
Do we have Andrew Squatero on the line? On the Zoom? Oh dear. Let me text him. While we're waiting on Andrew, I guess we can sort of go over some more of what we're going to be doing for questions. So we have a couple of pre-submitted questions that we've gotten from members, and we will also be taking questions in Stack for people who are contesting for these offices. I will be keeping track of Stack, and DM your email and I can add. I'm sorry. Oh, the Slack. Why am I reading the chat while I'm trying to say something? Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, so I guess the way that we're going to do that is if you have a question for any or all of the candidates, just write the word stack in the chat. Try not to ask questions directly in the chat. That can make things a bit unwieldy. And I would also encourage candidates to kind of not focus on questions in the chat. It'll make things more confusing. If you do have agreements, just do a couple plus signs and things like that. Try and keep chat clear. Other than that,
I was gonna also see if Ryan, our illustrious timekeeper, would mind giving everyone just a quick rundown of sort of how the timing of these questions is intended to work.
Yes.
Yeah, try to ask your question in under a minute. It might help if you write it down while you're waiting on Stack so you can just read it. And then we're going to give candidates the chance to respond with in under 90 seconds. Candidates can also decline to answer a question if they like. But I'll be doing the same thing of just giving them a heads up of how much time they have left. So, yeah. But like I said, we're still ahead of schedule. At 5:55, if we're still really going strong, we'll take a motion to extend for 15 minutes. But I think we got 40 minutes for questions. We'll see where we get to.
Yeah, and since we're not getting, hold on, Andrew is in the waiting room.
I got him.
Okay, cool. There he is. Oh.
Andrew, yay. All right, welcome back, Andrew. Yeah, you are up.
Okay, sorry, just letting myself get situated. All right. Yeah, my name's Andrew S. I'm Andrew Squitiero. I'm a union member of AFTA Academics. I'm an academic worker at Tulane University. I used to work at Delgado as a teacher, but as many of you know, teachers don't make that much money and they have even less job security. So here I am working as a staff member at a elite private college. There are two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about my vision for the chapter and my vision for the role of at-large member. The first thing I want to talk about is at-large member. We haven't really had a clear defined role for at-large members. It seems to just be active members, which is great. And I enjoy being an active member, but I think one of the things that we could task our at-large members to do is to be a voice for the general membership at the LC table. And so outside of the LC table, when we're voting and trying to represent the membership, we can also help general members who have ideas that they want to put forward to the LC, we could serve as like, I keep going back to the idea of an AA sponsor instead of like a liaison, which is probably a more correct way of putting it. But I like the idea of having like a socialist sponsor, I like having, and I've said before, Logan Yates is my person that I go to when I have a question about anything, because they generally seem to be free and don't mind if I hit them up anytime, day or night. I would like to be that person for any of our general members, but especially our newer members. I've been in DSA for over a year, a little over a year, and I've followed most of y'all on Twitter for longer than that. And it's taken me a long time to feel at home in the chapter. And I'll tell you that chapter culture, at least interpersonally for me, has been difficult, like making friends in DSA, which has been lanyard, like it's been something I didn't expect at all, but it's been really fun getting to do. But I still don't really understand how the chapter works, and I'm getting to understand it. And I think that once I have access to the G Suite, I'll understand it even more. I can help educate other members and work with whether it be Sean or Amanda, who's the membership chair, to try to make a welcome kit. I think I'm probably at 2.5 minutes, so let me switch to my vision for the chapter. That I also think we should be doing 2 things. I think our healthcare committee, I think our direct services committee, both have like flagship events that they do that I think are really great, and I think we should continue doing them. Other than that, I kind of think we need to press pause and use this time in not just American history, but New Orleanian history and COVID to figure out, get our own house in order, figure out what we need to do to make more members feel welcome in our chapter and involved, empower the general membership. And this is all going to be boring bureaucratic stuff, but the debates will probably be lively, so that's nice. And then the second thing we should do is support specifically Black-led, but all BIPOC organizations, and to do so intelligently and in a way that is not so much leading, but again, supporting, being a proper ally as an organization. I think that's something we're all learning how to do in all of our fights, how to be an ally as a person. I'm curious, how can we be an ally as an organization, you know? And I think we should take a year to just build trust in the community, keep doing the same things that we did today and that we did last week with the vigil. A good example would be when Nadia and I went out last year for the movie in the park and helped a bunch of scared white people, scared of socialism, help them like clean up their park. And I heard them whisper, "Oh, here come the socialists," when we walked up in red. And so they were not like, you know, excited for us. But when we showed up and did the work and were just like nice people, they trusted us. And I think we could replicate that experience over and over and over again. I'm probably at 30 seconds, so I will cede my time and get to the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Before Jeff opens up Stack, something I failed to point out in your agenda, but that everyone should take a look at. Below the Stack instructions are those guidelines for respectful discussion. Pretty much, I think virtually everyone has seen these before, but make sure you're taking a look at these and bearing them in mind as we go through the question and answer portion of this.
So I will start with questions that were submitted in advance. I created a form and posted it in Slack, and it was on the email. I have two responses, so I'm going to go ahead and read those first. The first is directed to all candidates. How do you plan to use your position to implement anti-racist education and anti-racist organizing for DSA New Orleans members?
And candidates, you can indicate in the chat if you would like to be called on when it's a question for all candidates, and I'll call out. Go ahead, Andrew.
I think we need to do this. I think the first thing we need to do is put LC through a formalized anti-racist training, a workshop. I think that while there are criticisms of such a workshop or a training, I think that it would really help to have a third-party professional organization that does this for us. I think that it should specifically be for the LC, and we should offer a sliding scale to other general members. Cost will be an issue, but I think it's something that is justified in its cost. The second thing would be, yeah, we need to do anti-racist reading. We need to get the working group a little bit robust, and that's something we can do on a chapter, and it seems like a lot of members are interested in it, which is great. I think that anti-racism needs to be not just confined to a working group, though. It needs to be part of our chapter-wide conversation constantly. And so I think that maybe it was Jordan's idea, maybe it was someone else, and I apologize if I'm crediting Jordan, that when we do a reading, we present it to the general membership body. The last thing we should do is what I said earlier, which is support Black-led organizations. And because I think that that's a good way of externalizing our internalized efforts.
Right, Francis and then Benjamin.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I mean, I would second a lot of what Andrew said is similar to what I was gonna say. I think there's kind of the inward facing piece of like trainings and doing reading groups and I love the idea of presenting those readings to the general membership so that that work doesn't become like isolated in one working group. And then also, I want to see more just opportunities for us to work alongside more Black and Brown led organizations and to struggle alongside Black and Brown workers. And those, opportunities for us to just all work together. Like, we live in a very, segregated society. So we have to be intentional and be proactive about, breaking down some of those walls. The City Waste Union strike line is, I think, a great example of that, and some of the most just incredible work that I've seen DSA members do. So that's one small example, but.
Thank you, Francis. Benjamin.
I think, love what both Andrew and Francis have said so far about this. I also think like leadership development is crucial. There's, all of our work really should be leadership development. Like, we should all be doing that with everything we're doing, but being like very intentional about that at every level of our work is extremely important. And like, frankly, the organization is too white and the leadership is too white, and it's been that way for a long time. And I don't think we should be shy about being like, pushing forward that we want like Black leaders in this organization. We want like Native New Orleanian leaders in this organization. We want other like people of color leaders in this organization, queer leaders in this organization. Like, we don't need to be shy about that. And I love what WPL has done with like making that like very intentional within that committee. And I think there's things we can do as a whole membership, but I would love to see that happen in all of our committees.
Thank you, Benjamin. I will now hand it over to Sean, and then unless any other candidates want to put themselves on stack, we'll have Jeff go to the next pre-submitted question.
Yeah, so when I was asked to run for a position on local council, I think one of my biggest fears was being a token person of color on local council and being asked to be a representative of people of color. And that was one of my biggest fears and one of my bigger apprehensions to running. But I think talking to a lot of folks who, especially the ones who have just spoken so far, I was inspired to see that, this is work that I think everyone wants to take on, especially the leaders who have talked to. So, that was pretty, that was reassuring for me. And, it made me feel like this wasn't going to be something I had to take on alone. But yeah, I think, just as we relate to labor as socialists, just as we relate to healthcare as socialists, I do think, we need to find where we stand with race and racial tensions, and how we can best represent the city we're in. So yeah, whether that's in a form of a working group or a committee, or just honestly, it should be a part of everything we do. Making sure race is taken to that factor. So thank you.
Thanks, Sean. And Lori.
Okay, so I agree with Andrew. I actually brought that up back in, I think, February, that we should do some anti-racist training. I think that even if we can't find one that's specifically socialist or leftist, we should at least do one, so that we know like the basic principles of anti-racist work, and then translate it to our specific system of beliefs. So I plan to participate in whatever that is. And I'm also like learning still too. So I'm open to learn, and so that's what I'm saying. I'm not terrible at talking in public. On Zoom is weird. It's just
You're doing great. Zoom is very weird.
Weird. I'd be so much more comfortable talking to people in person.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and close stack. I would also suggest that Lori is doing better than she thinks she is, I think. So let's move on to the next question that we have. And this is in a similar vein to the first one. What can or will you do to ensure the local chapter's demographic matches the city's demographic? And we'll take responses from local council members. Nadia.
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned in my candidate statement was working within the People of Color Caucus to, work on diversifying our membership and addressing the sorts of issues that people in our city, particularly Black people, care about, the things that impact their lives. I think that by creating specific avenues for BIPOC leadership, fighting for those causes within our organization is really important. And there was a time that the POC caucus was much more robust than it is now. When I first joined DSA, one of the first things that I was involved in was a panel on the history of socialism within the Caribbean. My mother is from Haiti, and so this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I think that by looking to the past and looking to all of the many, many successful ways that Black and Brown people in this city have been fighting is the first step in us to get involved in those campaigns, as well as grow those sorts of efforts within our chapter.
Thank you, Nadia. Amanda, I'm going to have you go next since we haven't had an answer from you yet.
Thank you. I definitely agree with what Nadia is saying, and also to, like, with my statement, building out a welcoming committee to keep people plugged in is going to be key to that. We need people to come to meetings, and obviously this is different with Zoom meetings. We should be having more people participate. It shouldn't be like this until we are, able to be together again. And I think a key to that is working with a POC caucus and working with those members to help build that out and make sure their voices are heard. It's this, to me, we have a majority of white people running for LC. This should be the last time that the LC candidates look as white as it looks. And this next year, we have to take the time to build leaders of color to run for LC next year.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to take James next and then Sean.
Hi, thank you. I want to echo pretty much everything the other candidates have said about working with other organizers who are already here, people of color and Black and Brown organizers and Native New Orleanians. But I want to add that as to how we can make that pay more dividends in terms of increasing the diversity of our organization, I pledge as a white member of leadership to continue my search for how to interact in this space better. We are all having to learn the ways that we intentionally, unintentionally have internalized white supremacy in the world around us. And so through the training programs, anti-racist training programs, I think is a phenomenal idea. And just taking time when we interact with these other organizations to use it as a learning experience and not as a, walking and talking. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We'll take Sean and followed by Francis.
I think the first thing we need to realize is just to, look at, our chapter and while it is majority white, there is still some commonalities between us. I feel like a lot of us are college educated. A lot of us are in our 20s to 30s, right? I think we need to realize that when we're recruiting people of color and, look at what spaces are available that we can get into. So I think firstly, we need to go to our historically Black colleges and universities and set up YDSAs in those universities, right? We've already done that with UNO. We've done that at LSU, and I think that'd be a great place to start building this chapter and making it more representative of the city. I live with a people of color, parents who are in their 40s. They're very set in their ways. They're very liberal, and that's just we can't spend time trying to convince people who won't be convinced, right? We need to go to the people who are looking for this kind of work, looking to be active organizers and socialists.
Thank you, Sean. So now we have Frances, followed by Lori.
Thank you. I would echo everything that everyone has said. And then the two things that I wanted to add were just one, I would love to see us kind of intentionally recruit folks into the national industrial sectoral organizing spaces, like the newly formed Health Workers Collective in DSA and the Restaurant Organizing Project. And so I think that will help us grow to be more representative of the working class in New Orleans. And then the other thing that I see is related weakness in our chapter is not a fantastic collective understanding, in part because so many of us are transplants, including myself, not a fantastic collective understanding of politics in the city. There's just so much to learn, and it is hard when you move to a new place. So I would love to see more, there was a presentation at a general meeting a while back about the Sewage and Water Board. I would love to see more things like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Frances. Now we have Lori, followed by Ben.
All right. So my biggest thing is growing the membership with more families with children. And what I want to do with that is I want to create a family type event that will draw people in, where we have, things for kids to do. And that will be, because as a person who's not in her 30s, as a person who is in her 40s, that I feel like there are a lot of people in my age group that are of the same mindset as I am, but they're afraid to say, they're busy with kids and they're busy with work and everything like that. But if we had something for the kids to do too, I think that it would definitely become we could grow in that capacity as well.
Great, thank you, Lori. And now we'll have Benjamin, and Andrew's taken himself off stack. So unless any other candidates would like to go after Benjamin, we'll close stack after him.
Yeah, I think especially what Sean and Lori said, super want to emphasize those points. And I think there are ways we can take some of that approach of who we're targeting our outward facing work to, and apply that to a media strategy. I think we've done some media strategy in this chapter before, but I think there's a tendency amongst socialist organizations to shout into an echo chamber, and it's a super white echo chamber. And there are ways we can do that with our work, whether we're focusing on specific sectors of labor or specific neighborhoods and things like that. And I think we should do that stuff, but I think we should also consider trying to, and I honestly don't know how to do this yet, but I think we should try and figure out how we're getting our message out. So many people don't know we exist, and I think we'd all be insane to think that our message isn't good. So I think we need to figure out how to get our message to Black New Orleans in a way that we're not doing right now.
Thank you, Benjamin. And closing out is going to be Nadia on this question.
Yeah, just to actually quickly sort of respond to and synthesize both Lori's comments and Ben's in terms of doing outreach in the city and focusing on families. One of the campaigns we worked on this past fall was a Movies in the Park night, where a few of us worked with the New Orleans Recreation Department to host a movie in a park And I think that things like that, where we are providing, a service, essentially a behavioral health service, a service for children, for families to come together within their community, doing something that they really care about, is not only a way to become more approachable to those folks, as Andrew's story of us helping that neighborhood clean up the park illustrated, but also, by really showing that we are a part of those communities too. We have families, we have children. So that's something that we all care about. Hopefully post-COVID, we can work on something like that again. It'd be great to bust out the bounce castle. That was an amazing night. And I just want to thank also briefly everyone that worked on that with me.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you can submit a question. All you need to do is type stack in the chat. You may also, and this is also for people who are contending for these positions, I would ask that you personal message me a question and then I can ask it. And do that just through the Zoom, the Zoom chat function. But I would like others to please, if possible, ask their questions themselves. But that personal message component is open. So
and just for clarity, Jeff's going to be running Stack for the questions, and I'll be running Stack for the candidates, just so that will maybe help things be a little more clear.
Yes, and our first question will come from Summer.
Hi. I'm wondering what y'all would do, so this is to everybody running, given what you know about the resolution as it stands surrounding Michael's basically punishment, what would you have done differently if you would have done differently anything? Thanks.
So again, candidates, Stack is open for response. So we have a jargon fox in terms of, Ryan, would you want to do the jargon fox explanation by any chance?
In real brief summation of what Summer is referencing is on Sunday, the local council voted to suspend impending mediation a co-chair, and we had a town hall about it on Thursday.
Thank you. All right, James, go ahead.
Yeah, just I want to preface this by saying that I wasn't aware of this until literally a couple nights ago, as I'm not super Slack is not super accessible to a lot of working people. And so I think having caught up on it as best I can, there are two things I can think of that should have been done differently. One is to not presume that Slack is the same as transparency with membership. These sort of stuff of this kind of importance needs to be brought to members and can't just be litigated or decided upon ad hoc, case by case, by each local council. The second thing that leads to my second thing is that we absolutely have to prioritize not just creating a position of someone who will, deal with grievances, but we need to have concrete in place systems for doing it to keep it democratic. We can't continue to just deal with every incident on a case by case basis. It takes way too much energy out of way too many people, and it's just way too difficult. Frankly, that resolution kind of reads a little bit like a persuasive essay. And I think that if we had something, loath as we are to admit it, something more bureaucratic might have actually benefited us in that situation.
Thank you, James. Nadia.
Yeah, I actually want to speak a little bit more towards the future and moving ahead, because while this is an ongoing situation, I think that it's really important for us to focus on how to prevent a situation like this from happening again. And we can definitely talk about transparency and accountability. And I think we will really need to, and those will be tough questions and tough conversations. But I think the important part is really pushing to an internal evolution of the infrastructure of the way that we handle grievances, including reforms, including the way that general membership is informed. But I think that if there had been protocols in place as far as lesser measures leading up to the events that transpired just within the last week, we might not be having such a difficult conversation now. And that's okay. Like, we have to grow, we have to learn. There were definitely missteps. I think everyone can agree to that. But at the same time, it's really important that we commit ourselves to making sure that there are procedures and policies in place that we can all fall back on and rely on, so that we can trust each other and trust in the infrastructure that we're building together.
Thank you. Francis, followed by Lori.
Yeah, kind of to build off that idea of Nadia's idea of like intermediary, like building up steps that could have prevented us from having such a difficult conversation now. I think something that's critically important and that is also an easy reform to make happen is just having harassment and grievance officers who aren't also elected leaders. I know in other chapters, sometimes the HGOs will be people who aren't even particularly involved in the chapter. Like, they're DSA members, but they're kind of peripheral. So they like understand the structure, but they aren't like engaged in the work on a day-to-day basis, which would, I think, create more like safe spaces to be like, hey, I'm not sure if this is gonna be a problem, but it's kind of bugging me right now. Let me talk it through with someone who's kind of a objective third party, and you can see like where you can be proactive about solving things before they become major issues.
Thank you, Francis. So next is Lori, followed by Sean.
So basically, I was going to say the same thing as Francis and Nadia. I think that we should have done some mediation prior to and implementing new standards for conflicts is where I want that. That's what I think should happen. Yeah. So implementing new standards for transparency and for mediation would be what I do.
Thank you, Lori. So now Sean, and then I think Ben will be closing this question out.
So I'll have to admit, I definitely I have a personal, like, I guess, investment in this. I know for me and for a lot of people, Michael was a lot of people's point person for the chapter, especially on local council. I know for me, like, Michael was someone who made me feel welcome in this chapter, whether it was because she was a woman of color or just her personality in general, at least in my experience, so, I don't want to speak for all members, but I do think that some members, a lot who I've talked to, were really disheartened by this decision. And should the decision have gone through? I don't know, but I would say that based off of what I've heard, I think a lot of Michael's actions came from a place of pain and frustration with, the society she lives in and the systems that she experienced within this chapter. So, I think, to respond to pain, you have to show love, and whether that's in the form of a formal warning or whatever it is, we need to make sure, especially someone who is that much of an asset to this chapter and has such a value to so many people in this chapter, we need to really take that seriously and put measures in place to prevent something like from happening again. So, and I think also part of that is we should have honestly, it needs to be a bylaw where HGO officers cannot be on local council. It's just it makes a tough situation even more difficult.
Thank you very much, Sean. And Benjamin, you'll close us out on this question, and then as a heads up, at that point, it'll be 5:55, and for additional questions, we'll need to take a motion to extend, as Ryan mentioned earlier, by 15 minutes.
You can take that motion now, I think. Does anybody want to extend time?
Ben has motioned. Do we have a second? All right. And it is so. We are extended to 6:15. Benjamin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what should have been done different is like hands down that the way this was presented way too easily was read as like admonishing Michael for speaking up about race. And like, if that is a factor, then that's a huge problem. But I think like there needed to be a way more clear articulation of the harm that was happening. And then moving like from that, I think it's super important right now. Like, sorry if this is a little not exactly the question, but for our chapter to take seriously that this is a suspension pending mediation, not an expulsion, and that like we have to take this, not like just future opportunities. We have to take this opportunity right now to like address everything that went into this moment and like come out better. So we need to take it seriously. We need to take all sides of this seriously. And like, I think a third party mediation is the way to do that. But I do think that the membership was blindsided and led to sort of think that this was like a tone policing action, and that was a massive, massive mistake.
Okay. We can continue taking questions. I have none. I have nobody up for stack for right now, but I did receive a personal message question, which I will let Ryan go first, and then I'll read the personal message question.
Hey guys, if anyone would like to speak about whether you have some experience with setting some like personal boundaries around your personal time, your work time, and what you expect about the organization time. I think as a former, admin member, I know that's important, not just for local council, but everybody in our chapter needs to set their time. So I just wanted to hear people's thoughts about what they plan to do.
Sean, go ahead.
Well, as a teacher, I have very little personal time. I'm working from 6 to 5 every day, and I'm working on the weekends. So, but despite that, I still think I have the capacity to be membership chair. I think part of that is making a membership committee that doesn't place all the responsibilities on one person, and when that one person can't be available, everything that everyone who's reliant on that person is now in a sticky situation. So I think that's my biggest plan, is really setting out the membership chair, because membership committee, because I don't want to be having to do 10 hours of work every week in addition to what I'm doing right now. So it's very important for me that I make this a system that hopefully more people in the future can willingly jump on, because they know they have the capacity to do it.
Thank you. Frances, followed by Amanda.
Yeah, I guess two things. One, I think that this is a critically important issue, and we have to figure out how to effectively develop new leaders to take on leadership in the organization, and so that too much work doesn't just fall just on the local council. That's an organizing failure if that happens. And then, yeah, I guess I would just say that I take this very seriously. My main thing is I'm going to get a therapist. I'm really excited and nervous, and this is really serious, and I want to protect our leaders, including myself.
Awesome. Thank you, Frances. And personal note, therapists are great. Everyone should have one. All right, Amanda, you are up, followed by James.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sean said too. I'm not a teacher, but I work retail. I don't have a set schedule, and so coming by time that's works for everybody is hard. So absolutely building out a body that can pick up and do the work, especially like with having been in mobilizers for almost 2 years. Not everyone always has the time 24/7 to answer a phone call, or even to really schedule a phone call, because scheduling will sometimes conflict with that, and we have to find a way to think outside of, like, not everyone works a 9 to 5 job. Maybe it's time to have meetings at different times that aren't at 6:30 at night. Like, there's with changes we can make to welcome people in and still make it serious and be able to, divvy out the work to other people as well.
Great, thank you. James, followed by Benjamin.
Yeah, I'd like to issue what Sean said as well, and say that for myself personally, I fully plan on exploiting the expertise of our current treasurer, future treasurer trustee, and my friend and former Floridian neighboring town brother, Stephen. But I would also like to work with other members of LC on how we can delegate out concrete tasks to people that can take workload away and increase involvement by membership. I mean, there are nuts and bolts things that tie us up and eat our free time that can be delegated and shared, and we don't have to do it by ourselves.
Thank you, James. Benjamin, I believe, is the last person on stack for this question.
Sorry, I keep going last. I think that, like, a lot of people are talking about delegating tasks. I think that's a really good idea. I also personally, like, I don't work very well alone. Like, it's not a strength of mine. There's a lot in this organization that I'm, like, not very good at, that other people are. So I think trying to, like, just encourage more collaborative work is something that can, like, lead to better time management and, like, less burnout, and also, like, more, like, legitimate connection between members, and just, like, it's more fun. I think, like, this sounds shallow, but, like, if this is boring and tedious, like, nobody's gonna do it. So I think we should try and, like, do co-work. We should work in collaboration as much as we can.
Great, thank you. Jeff, does anyone else?
No, that's it for right now, but I do want to get this question in really quick, and I will continue to keep Stack open as long as we have questions coming in. So this one is, there has been considerable discussion about chapter diversity and having our organization represent the working class. Labor unions are some of the most diverse organizations in the city, and are composed of and represent the interest of working class people. In your position that you're seeking, how would you approach working with unions?
And Stack is open for candidates. Francis, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that, like, from my perspective, I think that, like, labor organizing has to be at the center of everything that our chapter does. And as I said in my opening statement, like, if we're a socialist organization that doesn't center labor organizing, then, we're not a socialist organization. So we really, like, I do think it's very important, but I will also, like, just recognize my own limitations. Like, that's not something I know enough about. So I would be just excited to defer to the, like, incredible leadership in Worker Power Louisiana on how to center that work and foreground it in everything that our chapter does.
Thank you, Francis. Benjamin.
Francis said everything I want to say for the most part. This is another area that, like, frankly, is not my area of expertise. I think WPL has like been growing stronger and stronger and stronger, and I think it's important that we don't silo that work. And I think, you know, having the work of WPL integrated with other committees and just general like integration between committees, like having labor at the center of so much of what we're doing is extremely important. And also, I'm applying for a job with the post office, so hopefully I'll be part of a union soon.
Thank you, Benjamin. Sean.
So I'm not sure how familiar folks are with the history of the teachers union in Orleans Parish, but since Katrina and the almost dissolution of the Orleans Parish teachers union, you know, we're at a point where there's maybe a handful of members. I'm not sure on the specifics, but I know for me personally, you know, being you know, having my grandfather who worked in Orleans Parish Teachers Union, was on the strike line and for the union. I feel personal investment in seeing that particular union grow and our chapter, you know, helping with that. I think it's been a systematic intent for, you know, this city, for the state to eliminate this particular union that was incredibly strong prior to Katrina. And I do think we're seeing the ramifications of that. I think our teachers are struggling. Our children are struggling because of that. And yeah, I see that. I don't know if that's something within my capacity as membership chair to do, but I will definitely work closely with WPL to advance our support in that area.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any other candidates who would like to speak on this issue? Question of centering unions and our relationships with unions. Okay, well then we'll close stack on that question.
And as I don't have any more people on stack for questions, we do have about 7 more minutes that we could end the meeting now. Oh, so Trey's got a question.
All right, so just jump on.
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you.
Okay. Hey, yeah, I guess a question I wanted to ask. In all the candidate statements, heard a lot of people talking about growing the membership, which I think is like obviously really important. But I'd also like to ask about like membership retention and engagement, and any kind of like specific strategies or ideas that candidates might have for keeping our members engaged and sort of better utilizing the talents and like abilities that we already have in our membership. And it seems like a lot of people are paper members are pretty disengaged right now. So how would you guys go about addressing that?
Thank you very much for that question, Trey. And we will go Francis and then Nadia.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts and ideas on that, but one thing that I am excited about, which you know, I'm not sure how realistic it will be to implement, but I think it can be done, is like a systematized way for local council to have regular one-on-ones with general membership that we can like keep track of and know what questions we want to ask folks, just so we can like get to know our membership better and like know, because yeah, there's so much incredible talent in our membership and it's underutilized, especially when, you know, like Sean talked about, just kind of handing out lists of names and numbers, but like how can we delegate tasks in a way that is like fun, like Benjamin said, that is leadership development, that is like bringing people into conversations about chapter strategy and political direction. And I think part of that just starts with like getting to know people better, and especially in the times that we're living in, like regular one-on-one phone conversations is something that I would love to figure out a way how to systematically implement it between local council and general membership.
Thank you, Francis. Nadia, followed by Amanda.
Yeah, I think one of the roles, or at least one of my focuses as at-large council member is taking some of the pressure off of committee leaders. I don't think that siloing people into committees works very well for buy-in. It means that people are focused on their specific projects or campaigns, which can be not very sustainable if these are short-term goals. So I think that we have to really look at inverting some of the centralized power structures that we have going on right now. More decisions being made within general membership and at general membership meetings, using that space as a place for people to discuss ideas that they're interested in and things that they want to see the chapter work on is really important. And then from there, sort of dropping individual pieces of those campaigns into the appropriate committees. I think that right now, people tend to get very focused on individual projects, but if the membership as a whole were more involved in the decision-making process at the beginning, as opposed to just being informed of the fruits of the labor at the end, that would incorporate, I think, a lot of people's ideas and therefore allow them to feel like they were truly a part of our chapter.
Thank you, Nadia. Next up, we'll have Amanda, followed by Benjamin.
Yeah, so just to compound like what Ewan said earlier, I think coming back to having monthly general meetings is a way to get people involved. It's not exactly easy just to start in a committee. I am someone that started in a committee. My first meeting was a labor meeting and it's kind of felt like jumping in the deep end. So making sure also too that welcoming doesn't just stop at welcoming someone in. We need to be checking in with people a month in and seeing how they're doing, how they're feeling, and making sure we have their attention, but also that we are aware of what their needs are as well. It's easy to send someone a welcome text and a welcome phone call and shuffle them into a meeting, but we have to check back in with people too and not just be a random point person if they have a question. We need to be forming those relationships long term.
Thank you, Amanda. We're going to go Benjamin, and then the last two on this question will be Andrew, followed by Sean, and that will about bring us to time. Does anyone, we have one final person on stack for questions. We do have a hard out at 6:30, but if anyone wants to make a motion to extend by 10 or 15 minutes for that final question, we can do that. All right, Benjamin has motioned, Andrew a second, as has Francis. All right, ta-da, we are extended until 6:30 if we need that amount of time. So Benjamin, followed by Andrew.
I'll try to keep this pretty brief, but yeah, I think this is something we can think about, like in terms of like, you know, when you organize a workplace, you're mapping out people's like actual existing relationships, and I think we can do things like that in our own chapter. And so it's like, who has relationships with people in arrears, who has existing relationships with people who are paper members, like where are the like sort of like informal caucuses within our chapter, and how do they like keep, you know, tabs on each other, check-ins and things like that. So I think just like doing like real knowing our own membership and like a mapping of that with the intentionality of it behind the like retention in the way you would like workplace organizing, I think is a good approach to that. Also, this is maybe secondary, but I think it would be cool if there was like a parents caucus that like, so like families could keep tabs on like keeping families in the organization.
Thank you, Benjamin. So last two on this question is going to be Andrew, followed by Sean, and then we will do the final question and close things out. So Andrew.
I don't remember the question exactly, but I'm just responding to the discourse so far. Something that's come up before is what and I don't want to name any names, but there are like lots of active members who were active for like 6 to 9 months and then dropped off our radar. And I just want to know, like, what happened to y'all? Like as a friend, as a comrade, as everything. And so not just like reaching out to people who are in arrears, but like reaching out to people that like used to be a familiar face. And I think that sort of happened to me actually, because I did take an informal break for like 3 months or so when I got my new job and was adjusting to a new schedule, and then a global pandemic hit, and I was just kind of like blindsided. And several people, I can't remember exactly who, reached out just to see if I was doing okay and if you know, I want to go this, then the third. And I think that's something that we should really think about, is having some sort of like one-on-ones for active members who we just haven't seen in a while.
Thank you, Andrew and Sean.
Yeah, I think so far it's been a lot of great ideas. I think as long as we focus on that in the future, I think, you know, we're going to be in a better place in terms of engaging our members. One area I do think members could be more engaged in our local council meetings. I know I've been to one, I think two, where I was one of a handful of people who were not local council members. And at the end of the day, you know, while there isn't a whole lot of direct engagement of some of the members, it's more local council, you know, making decisions. I do think we should really create a space and invite people, encourage people to come and be a part of that discussion, because there's still an opportunity for voices to be heard. So I do think that's one area that, you know, in terms of engagement, I really would like to see. Secondly, I had a second point and I forgot. But yeah, I think that's very important.
We have one more person on Stack, but to sort of bolster the point that Sean was just making, sitting in on LC meetings is really interesting. As someone who was on LC for 2 years, you get to see sort of like how things go. So if you haven't done that, I definitely encourage it. So anyway, our last question is from Laura, and we're going to go ahead and close Stack after that. We're going to have responses from the folks who are contending for office, and then we can close out.
Sure. I guess I'll try and keep this brief, but I would like to hear from specifically all white men running from office, but for anyone who feels that their identity, whatever. I would like to have hear people's response to like how you would deal with balancing listening to leadership that is not a marginalized, leadership of marginalized identities, right? Listening to women, listening to Black leaders without putting all the work on those people to, putting all the work on them and what that looks like for you.
Thanks, Laura. Stack is open for candidates. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, hi. I've actually kind of been in a situation kind of like what I think you're describing in some of my work with Hospitality Workers Committee. And it was kind of a learnable moment. You know, that organization was not nearly quite as white as DSA, and we were finding a lot of burnout with membership there, getting sick of explaining how people were being racist and how white supremacy is a lot more complicated than you think. I've found the best way to navigate it is there's a way to listen without necessarily asking someone to relitigate an issue that they've already gone over before. And that is, I've found, is to actually listen, not just kind of nod through something, and then to take that information yourself and try and grow from it. I hope that answers your question. It felt like I got kind of lost in it, but I'd love to talk with you about it more. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Andrew is up, followed by Benjamin.
Point of clarity, Laura, are you referring specifically to within DSA or when we are working with other organizations that might be Black-led?
I would say, I think you could respond with both. I think part of this comes from my organizing with the Socialist Feminist Caucus and feeling very much like, as well as with the local council, feeling very much like white men tend to have the idea that in organizing spaces that their voices shouldn't be heard, therefore they shouldn't participate in the work.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that is definitely like in the moment right now, right? For lots of reasons. And you're right that this has happened before with women. I specifically remember during the Kavanaugh hearings, like, how much should I be speaking right now, or should I just shut up, you know, for a long time? I think, honestly, that article that Sue posted a few days ago in the Slack, I think really nailed it. And some other stuff too that I've seen. It's a fixed versus a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset would be, I'm white, I'm a white male, I'm a cishet white male, therefore I should not speak right now. And I get where people have that impetus, and I've had that impetus before, unfortunately. A dynamic growth mindset would be, how do I mobilize that? How do I actively listen to people? How do I actually support people? We can't just sit on our hands. We need to step up. We need to involve ourselves in other organizations. I'm seeing, hold on one second, how white men feel they shouldn't participate in the work. I'm just gonna respond to the white men part, how they feel they shouldn't participate in the work. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to shy away from the work, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for leadership in the chapter. I think it's something that, I mean, white people need to get other white people online, and they've been needing to do that for a long time. That's something that I do both in my private life and my personal life and my work life. I'm at time. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Andrew. And Benjamin, you are up.
So I think, yeah, like, first off, I don't want to shy away from this work at all. And as someone who, like, sort of thinks of himself as an idiot, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. And I will make mistakes for sure. And I'm sure this, like, isn't, like, fully enough, and you know, there is no final point of fully enough, but like, my instinct is just to approach relationships from a point of authenticity, and to like really try and see where someone's coming from. And I think, you know, as someone who's like running for leadership and is currently in leadership in this organization, like, it's important to never take historical or societal context out of the picture when it comes to any relationship, even if that's someone who like you feel personally close with or personally distant from. Just like try and take that context into things, but like just truly approach things authentically. But also, I want to do the work. All right, I'm at time.
Thanks. And Sean.
I'll admit before I go into this, it's a little, my thoughts on this aren't very, you know, focused, but I will say this, you know, as a Black man, I do want to be heard, but I also want to be heard because my, you know, because my thoughts are well thought out and intentional. And I appreciate this more recent thing, for people to like listen to Black people, I guess. But for me, it's like I've been talking this whole time, so I don't know. I at the end of the day, I want people to be authentic with me. I want people to hear me, but I don't, and I appreciate people working towards getting to a better place. But that's what I want to see. So.
Thanks so much, Sean. This is going to be the last call for any candidates to speak. And also, if you're not tracking the chat, Nikki did also more or less pose this to any white women running as well, if anyone would like to speak from that perspective. All right, Frances, followed by Amanda, and that is the two of you are going to close us out. So Frances, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have a ton to add other than I just wanted to really echo like what Benjamin said about and what Sean said about authenticity, and trying to like always act from just an authentic place and check in with myself, and then also just like acknowledging that I will make mistakes, that we will all make mistakes, and that if we have generated a culture of trust and camaraderie and respect and authenticity and directness and transparency and honesty and kindness, then like we can make mistakes and grow from them.
Thank you, Frances. Amanda, we'll go ahead, and then yeah, Nadia, as long as everyone's keeping things concise, I think that's fine. You can close us out.
Yeah, and not to be an echo chamber either. I mean, I'm approaching this as a white queer woman. We have to be willing to do the work and to listen, but also making sure we're not putting all of the work on people of color in the organization too. I echo what, a lot of what Sue was saying in the town hall on Tuesday. Like, every white person she knows has pretty much reached out to her because they want white fragility, but like, we can't continue to put all the work on other people. We have to do the work and be open and honest as we can be, and be willing to make mistakes, because mistakes are going to happen, but we have to be willing to learn from those as well.
Thanks, Amanda. And last, Nadia.
As the, I think, only candidate not specifically called out by this question, I love this question. This is a great question, and thank you for asking it. Earlier today, I was speaking to my partner and made the comment, how many things have gotten done because a Black woman said, fuck it, I'll do it. I think that every single person who is a candidate who has spoken today is someone that I would be honored to work with, is someone I consider a comrade within this chapter, and is someone that I feel like we can meet each other where we're at. Where I'm at is primarily being a mouthpiece for general membership for every single comrade within this chapter. And I really support all of you all. And I feel like together we can work on some of the past issues that we've had as a chapter, some of the current situations and problems that we're having to deal with, so long as we stay focused on honesty and accountability. So I just wanted to address my fellow candidates as well as everyone else listening to this candidate forum. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Before we take a motion to adjourn, first, of course, we want to thank all of the candidates who were a part of this, everyone else who participated, and especially the Convention and Election Committee, who's been doing a lot of work to make everything happen. And I'll see if Jeff has anything left to say, but the last thing I want is for Ryan to just quickly, he just linked as well to the page on our website about local convention, but I am going to have him also just remind everyone sort of about time frame and any other pertinent information. Jeff, do you have anything before that?
I just wanted to say that thank you everyone for all of your time for putting into this. This is a big deal. The election and the folks of us that are on the committee have done a considerable amount of work meeting every week for this. Just really quickly too, for any questions about the structure of our chapter, the local council is comprised of chapter-wide elected positions, or the people that are running for the positions that spoke today, and also committee co-chairs and stewards. If you have any other questions about that, we are developing documents for about chapter structure surrounding that, because we do want to make sure that people understand how things work around here. Ryan, would you like to bring us home?
You want to see the people?
Yeah, again, thank you everybody for your time. Thank you for all the candidates for participating. To echo what...
Hey, I'll stop video if you want.
Is that
James, you're not muted.
We should try to fold leadership development through all our activities if we can, and I believe that trying to set this precedent of having a candidate forum will help us, because it gives people more time to shape their views, answer questions, and think about this beyond writing something up in about 500 words. But thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for all the candidates for your time this evening. What's going to happen next is Monday, we're mailing out the physical mail ballots. To hit this nail one more time, if you do not want or need a mail-in ballot, there's a form to fill out where you can opt out. You can also update your physical mailing address if you think that it's changed. But it'll have all the candidates' information, how to vote, and a mail-in ballot if you want to send that. The election is going to start next Saturday from today at 2 p.m. We'll open up the online voting through OPA Vote, and that'll also kick off the period where we're accepting, well, as soon as you get a mail-in ballot, you can send it back in. But we're accepting them for a whole week afterward through 5 p.m. July 3rd. So we'll have information about how to use OPA Vote at the meeting, but there's also a tutorial on that convention hub that I just linked, along with links to the statements, explanations of what the chapter roles are, and a little bit of information about the second part of the convention, which will happen July 25th. That's going to be for bylaw amendments and political resolutions that we'll consider together. So we had to split it up this year because of social distancing and the amount of time it takes to plan. But you will get more information about that. But next week, convention part 1, state of the chapter presentation, annual treasurer's report. You'll hear a little bit more from the candidates, and we'll show you how to vote. But thank you again, everybody. Hope you have a good evening and safe tomorrow.
Yeah, and Jordan had just posted in the Zoom chat that he wants to invite all candidates to the local council meeting on Monday. They'll be talking about the transition plan from the current local council to the new local council. And also, I mean, just so that people are also aware, local council meetings are available for all members to sit in on. And I encourage people to do so.
Yeah, so we'll have the recording of this that Ryan made available to other members. Otherwise, at this time, I will take a motion to adjourn. Jordan motions, Amanda seconds, everyone seconds. Awesome. Boom, boom.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.